Warning. Warning. The following program depicts exercises which, depending upon your physical condition, may be hazardous to your health.
There is 85 million in bank debts. We may even have trouble paying salaries for the next couple of months.
The purchase of countless cars, including a Ferrari F40 and a Lamborghini Countach. $3 million on a watch, a Patek Philippe 2523. $7 million on a luxury penthouse. I could go on and on. An 18th century palatial villa outside Florence for use as a training center.
We want to offer you $150 million for your 50% stake in Gucci.
You want to buy me out?
We want to save the business.
Economic cycle in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems. We're going to have a government debt problem. Maybe we can get into this.
Welcome. The debt clock and the national debt. What it represents is the thing that no one wants to talk about, that makes economists instinctually jump in fear or stick their head in the sand and hope it goes away. But this elephant in the room cannot be ignored anymore, and I'll explain why. I'll break down 4 vital key points to explain to you why this pachyderm of debt is about to go on a stampede. The U.S. debt has reached the point of critical overload. And if it's this bad, the average person is going to ask, why can't they stop the bleeding? There's a few possible reasons that they have come to this point. And one of those reasons that fit this scenario the best is that over time, they have now become addicted to debt. As strange as that may seem, it's a real possibility of that's what we're seeing.
First off, let's define what we mean by debt addiction. When we talk about debt addiction, it's not just about taking out loans or using credit cards here and there. Debt addiction is when borrowing money becomes a habit, almost like a dependency. Just like other forms of addiction, it has patterns, it impacts people emotionally, and it can become harder to control over time.
And this is what we see right now happening in real time. Debt addiction has become habitual. It becomes the habit of taking and borrowing money. The other key point to debt addiction is what we see right now, the compounding problem. You see, after a while, your debt addiction starts to become harder and harder to control. That means over time, that debt starts to run rampant.
Somebody help me. Somebody help me. Somebody help me.
This is serious because if you ask any recovering alcoholic how bad addiction is to overcome that problem, it's hard. It goes on to say, this article about addiction, it says when one form of funds or credit runs out, they immediately apply for a new line of credit. This is in order to keep the flow of money coming in. But this is the most important part, and it's going to come in later in some of the next topics. It says lenders see these people as progressively higher lending risk. So they usually come with higher interest rates. Higher risk now because you're not paying back your loans. You're taking out more money by not paying out your loans. So they look at you at the higher risk and you pay higher interest. It starts to become a cycle. This brings us to our next topic, debt poor and upside down on its payments. In order to understand this, let's make this a little bit more personable by letting Stanley Johnson explain it to you.
I'm Stanley Johnson. I've got a great family. I've got a 4-bedroom house in a great community. Like my car? It's new. I even belong to the local golf club. How do I do it? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I can barely pay my finance charges. Somebody help me.
Stanley Johnson is the mascot for runaway debt and addiction to debt. He's so enamored by trying to keep up with the lifestyle, cars, houses, and country club that he says he's in debt up to his eyeballs. And this is exactly what's happening here with the U.S. debt. The U.S. is also in debt up to its eyeballs, like our friend Stanley Johnson. They owe an enormous debt, about 38 trillion, soon to be 40 trillion in less than a year. Their interest payments are also enormous. They pay close to $3.2 billion a day. That's right. But just like Stanley Johnson is having a hard time paying his interest rates, they cannot pay down their principal. So all they can do is pay interest. And this is where the problem lies. As we can see here, the GDP, or what they're worth, is about 27 trillion. But something doesn't add up. Wait a minute. They owe close to 38 trillion in less than a year. So if they owe 38 trillion and they're only worth 27 trillion and they keep on borrowing on the debt, that means that they're upside down on their payments. And this is stated here. This article sums up perfectly what you just saw with your own eyes. Wait a minute. You're worth 27 trillion or so, but you owe an ever-expanding debt of 38 trillion. It says the U.S. budget deficit widens, the national debt surges to 156% of GDP. What that means now is all that money you're borrowing, the product that you borrowed it for, is now worth less than what you owe. That means you are now upside down on your payments because all you're doing is paying the interest rates and borrowing more debt. What is the damage being done is the next topic. Well, the damage being done is multifaceted. Why? Because there are different types of damage. There are damages that are easy to quantify, and there are damage that are not so easy to quantify. For example, there's economic damage. Economic damage, let's just say in a case, is if a car gets hit, you know how much that car is worth, so then you can calculate how much you should be reimbursed or how much damage you should ask for back that was done. But there's something that's more significant. There is non-economic damage. And non-economic damage is much harder to quantify. It falls under the theme of pain and suffering. How do you quantify pain and suffering? But the pain itself is real. This is where most of the damage is being done by the debt being as out of control it is. And these have titles you won't hear in the mainstream. For example, they're called reputational damage, or which is called social capital. Yes, these are terms and they do have weight. Social capital is important It is your networks. It is how people look at you. It is your reputation. It is the trust. It is how people want to deal with you in the future. Reputation or social capital could destroy a business, or it could make a business boom. What's happening with the debt is that they are bleeding not only capital, physical capital, they're bleeding social capital. And this is the damage, it says here in the article. What is the damage? Loss of customers. That means, tell me how much you can see what's happening right now. People would stop trying to deal with you, stop doing business with you. Customers will default to your competitors. Does it sound familiar? Looking for other avenues to deal with because they don't know whether you will pay your debt. It's harder to get people to come to you or to work for you. You see, this is reputational damage, and it starts to contract a company. It starts to slow down a company's profitability. And this is what's happening right now. People are losing faith in what was a system that was supremely profitable in the past. But reputational damage, loss of social capital, this is what's happening. That's the damage. Non-economic damage is what you won't hear because it is harder to quantify. But it is real. Now we get to the juicy part. What's the end game? How are they going to fix this? We already know that there's an addiction problem that's mixed in here with debt addiction. We already know that they could only pay the interest rate and keep on borrowing to pay those interest rates because the debt is so substantial and that they're upside down. We know that the social capital damage, the reputational damage, the non-economic damage is tremendous, along with economic damage. As a CEO of a different type of caliber, I have seen many businesses that are affected with this type of mentality. Enron, Kmart, Blockbuster, just to name a few. This is nothing new, but the stakes are much higher. As a CEO with a lot of experience, let me be upfront with you. I cannot see an easy and painless fix to this crisis and problem because there is two forces at play. This problem is both fiscally a problem and mentally a problem. Because what we're seeing right here is fiscal obesity. People who are used to consuming a large amount of debt. And with that consumption of debt, they have now become used to it. But what do I know? I'm just a CEO. Thanks for watching.